Hi folks, I'm Josh. Welcome back to my shop. I've had a couple of folks ask recently where I get the wood that I use in my projects, so I thought I'd make a video about it rather than typing out a long answer every time somebody asks. So these are the 5 main ways that I get wood for my projects. My least favorite way to get wood is when you have to pay for it. From places like lumber yards and hardware stores or woodworking stores like Woodcraft or whatever, something like that. And so I do occasionally do that when I really need something specific or a lot of one type of wood or perfectly dimensional lumber for, some project. Another time that I do buy wood from hardware stores and places like that are when I need hardwood dowels. So this is an oak dowel, and you can get decent hardwood dowels for a pretty good price as long as you're really picky. I have gone through every single oak dowel in stores before to find one that I was happy with, looking for grain that is continuous throughout the whole dowel, which is really rare, and also ones that are not super crooked. I'll lay them on the floor and roll them to see how flat they are, but I've done that. And also on the very rare occasion that I want to use something exotic, like for example this purple heart. This was actually gifted to me, which I'm very grateful for, but if I really need that unusual color or something like that and I need an exotic, I might have to go to some shop and pick it up. But otherwise, I tend to not use those places to get wood. One place that I feel a little better about getting wood from is a sawmill. There's a local sawmill about 30 minutes from where I live, which I live in southeastern Wisconsin. They have a really good selection. They have stuff that's harvested locally and in good ways, as opposed to exotics or things that are taken in the hardware store. I have no idea where those are coming from and if they're sustainably taken, and I don't know. I just don't feel as good about using those. So the sawmill is a better place. It's maybe a little less expensive than the hardware store, but you get way better variety, better quality wood, generally speaking, and people there that know what they're talking about. If you're looking for something unusual or specific, they can be really helpful. So that's maybe the next popular place. When you need a lot of wood, I pretty much always have to go somewhere to purchase that. But when most of the projects I do are smaller, making little toys and knickknacks and bowls and stuff for the boys or gifts for friends or family. I'm not a production woodworker. I don't need tons and tons of wood. I mostly just need small pieces of good wood. And so I seldom need to go to the mill or a hardware store to pick up that, a lumber yard to pick up that much wood, unless I've got a really specific project. Another place that I really enjoy picking up wood from is kind of that repurposing, reusing, recycling, reclaiming, whatever term you want to use for I found wood somewhere and now I'm using it because it was used for something else previously. Things like furniture that people are getting rid of on the side of the road, or maybe a thrift shop or a garage sale, you can get your hands on some pretty decent wood relatively cheap, sometimes free. An example of that is I was at a garage sale not long ago that they were trying to sell the tops of like the hutches that would sit on a dresser, and they were solid oak. And I mean, maybe somebody would need something like that. I'm sure that's why they were trying to sell them, trying to get a little bit of money out of them. But I told them, I kind of asked a bit and was kind of curious about what they were going to do with them if they didn't sell, because it was like Sunday, the last day of their garage sale, and it didn't look like anybody was going to buy them. She said that she would probably just get rid of them, either trash them or put them on the side of the road and hope somebody would take them. Well, I said, well, I'll give you a little something for them, and I'll take them. I explained I'm a woodworker, and I'll repurpose them to something else. And she said, well, you can just have them. If they don't sell, I'll put them on the side and they're all yours. I said, well, that's great. So I did exactly that. The next day, I went by, threw them in the back of my van, brought them home, broke them down, and I ended up with quite a bit of pretty good quality oak. And, it was finished in a way that I probably wouldn't finish for something I was doing, but I used it for things like all the shelves and fixtures and stuff in my shop are built out of, or almost all, most of that wood is from reclaimed furniture and things like that. And I don't mind that they don't match. I mean, maybe in an aesthetically perfect world they would, but it doesn't bother me. So that was a really great place to get some wood. There's also the cheaper furniture that people bought that, like the IKEA style stuff that's like all flat packed and made from fabricated woods and glued and all that crazy stuff. And those are useful too. If you need some sheet goods that are really good and flat, I don't have a problem with picking up a piece of furniture off the side of the road. If nobody's going to use it for its intended purpose, I'll take care of that for them. If you watched my recent video of my crosscut sled, I built that from a piece of melamine that was on the top of a workbench that somebody was getting rid of. And I had to pull some screws out of it, and it had some holes in it that I didn't need, but for a crosscut sled, perfectly okay. So I built a crosscut sled for zero expense as far as the wood goes. That's awesome. So that's another really good place to get wood. And then the other place is like construction scrap. I've got a buddy that works in construction, and occasionally he'll, have a bunch of leftover 2x4s that were 4 feet long that weren't long enough to be useful for them, and they were just going to get tossed. Well, I'll go take care of those. So, a little dumpster diving, or a buddy that's got his, finger on the pulse of the construction, that's a good thing to have. Which kind of leads into the fourth way that I tend to get wood, and that is from friends that work in wood-related fields. So like my buddy that works in construction, 4-foot 2x4 cutoffs are totally useful for me. I can build all kinds of stuff with those. And then I have another friend that is a developer, and when he goes to develop land, he clears the trees himself, and he has all the heavy equipment. He's also a woodworker, and when he clears a cool tree, he will keep most, the good chunks of wood, like the whole trunk up to the first branch, and stack them off to the side on his property for a while. And then he's a member of the Antique Power Show around here, which in Wisconsin, I don't know how popular this is, if this is a worldwide thing or just the States or Midwest probably. But anyway, at the Power Show, they have all kinds of old-timey power equipment and tractors and stuff like that. And one of the things that they often do is they will run an old-style sawmill off of an old tractor, and it's really cool to watch, but also they need wood to saw, and because he's a member of the Power Club, he can take logs over, and they saw them up for, it's very inexpensive. I think it's like $10 for a really big hunk of wood to get it all sawed into boards. And so I help him out when he does that, and I help him stack it, I help him get it to the show, I help him get it home, and I also, he's a friend of mine, so I help him with all kinds of fun stuff, and it goes the other way. And part of that is he lets me take some of that wood, so I get really nice quality hardwoods from him. I also have a friend that takes down barns and then rebuilds them around southeast Wisconsin, and he doesn't always get to rebuild the barn. Sometimes people just want a barn removed, and so he has wood that's left over or that doesn't get used, and he's nice enough to let me have some of that for a little bit of nothing, oftentimes nothing. So just having friends that work in the wood field, I didn't become friends with them to take advantage of that, but it has just kind of worked out that we have common interests because we're woodworkers, and woodworkers are good people. So that just, it works out. We help each other out, and maybe I have something that they're looking for, or I make them something with some of the wood that I get and things like that. So that's a really nice connection to have and a good place to get wood. The fifth way that I tend to get wood, and probably my favorite way to get wood, is from tree trimming or tree removals. Living in suburban Wisconsin, there's lots of trees and forested land around the area that people are maintaining for whatever reason. And when those trees are trimmed or have to be removed because they're dead or dying or threatening a home or whatever the case might be, I will jump on that. I keep wood from the trees that I trim on my own property. I talk to my neighbors and friends when they have trees trimmed, and they all know that I am a woodworker, so oftentimes when they're having a tree trimmed or removed, they'll let me know, and I will either help with that or talk to the tree company that's doing it, and they're usually happy to let you have some, because usually the tree companies that are removing those trees are having to pay to get rid of them themselves. Some use them for mulch and stuff like that, so not every tree company is going to just give you the wood, but some will, and it never hurts to ask, I figure. And that even includes strangers. When I'm driving by and there's somebody that's got a tree that's just being chopped up, a lot of times I'll stop and ask, hey, do you mind if I take a little bit? I'm a woodworker, and oftentimes people will give you some, and sometimes you make them a bowl out of it, take it back, and you say thanks, and then you still got a bunch of wood and stuff like that. And along those lines, it's actually really common around here anyway for people, when they do have a tree removed, to chop everything into logs and then roll them out to the road. And I believe their intention is that people are going to use it for firewood, but I'm happy to turn it into bowls and spindles for, the lathe or whatever project I happen to be working on. It's a great way, keep an eye on what people are putting out by the side of the road for free, and I'll go grab it. I don't have any problem with that. And firewood makes great wood. It's usually split instead of sawn, which means you have nice continuous grain, and the quality can be fantastic. You'll be surprised what people roll out to the side of the road. Probably my favorite way to get wood is from tree removals. I mean, rather than paying at a lumber yard or whatever to have wood that has been shipped and driven across the country or the world for that matter, why not take advantage of the wood that's across the street or in your own yard? I whittle often on little branches that come off of the buckthorn, which is an invasive, so nobody cares if you cut buckthorn down. So I'll cut up a buckthorn branch and whittle that into something, or when I trim the unusual lilacs that grow next to my house, I'll keep the branches out of that and use that for whittling or carving and whatnot. So I try to not pay for wood if I don't have to, and if I had a business where I made lots of things and sold lots of things, that would be a different story. But I'm not in that boat, and I imagine most of the folks watching this are also not in that boat. Especially if you have a shop with a little bit of space that you can store some wood until you need it, or you can stack some outside and maybe cover it a little bit. You can get your hands on some wood and just kind of have a stockpile around. I have a fair amount of wood. I could probably go for several years without ever needing more and keep myself good and busy, but I still keep an eye out for something unusual. If you live in a house, that's really small and you don't have a yard, or you live in an apartment or something like that, where your shop is a lot more cramped and or non-existent, you're working out of like a closet, it's a lot harder to work in those kinds of situations, and you may have to buy a lot more of your wood, but you're also probably working on smaller projects. At least that seems to be what fits in my mind. You're probably not building boats out of a studio apartment. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. If anybody has any really great ways that they acquire wood, please let me know. I'd love to, if I missed something, if there's some way that you get wood, or you have some connection that really works out well for you, I'd like to hear about that. So please let me know if you have some good way of doing it. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon.